everybody. Welcome to the Run Selfie Repeat podcast, where normally we talk about life with the side of running, but this is a BQ or Bust episode, or more rather, a Project 159 episode. Project 159 is our little appetizer on our way to BQ or Bust, because I am so incredibly far away from this big, giant moonshot outcome goal that I have to try to qualify for the Boston Marathon in 2025, whether that's spring or fall, will depend on what I'm doing right now. Project 159, trying to break 2 hours in the half marathon. We're going to really get into whether or not that feels possible today. I don't want to jump the gun, but you know what I was just thinking as I'm recording this? I watched, I caved and I got Netflix. I literally have every single streaming service, like a dodo, and I can't afford this. I've got Paramount Plus, which has Showtime in it. Because I wanted to watch Survivor, because I do like Pod Save America and Love It or Leave It and the Crooked Media podcasts, and I wanted to watch John Lovett on Survivor, because every year I'll watch like 5 episodes on Delta. I fly Delta, and they always have like 5 episodes of Survivor. So every year I'll like get into Survivor, but then I like don't have Paramount Plus, so I can't watch the rest of it. And for like a hot second, I'm sad about it. And then I forget and I get over it until the next season is on Delta. And then I'll watch those 5 episodes, and then I'll be like, I should watch the rest. Then I'm like, never mind. So they kept hyping that John Lovett, who's one of the hosts of that podcast, was going to be on Survivor. And I was like, oh, I can't wait. And so I stupidly bought a year-long subscription, and he gets kicked out on the first episode. And I'm sure I can figure other stuff to watch with Showtime. I want to watch Yellow Jackets, but I'm also delicate and I don't know if I can handle it. So I don't know. I'm pissed. So yeah, I've got Paramount Plus and Showtime. I've now got Netflix. I feel like Netflix was the only one I didn't want, because they're the whole reason that we're in this mess where we have to subscribe to 100 stupid effing apps and pay so much effing money. I've got Apple Plus. I've got the Disney bundle, where I've got like the Hulu and the Disney Plus and the Sports One. And then I've got, what else do I have? YouTube Premium. Because I listen to music on YouTube. That's where I get my Disney stuff. And I hate ads, and I'm a sucker. What else do I have? I feel like I'm missing something. HBO, which is now Max. I have that. Is there a streaming service I don't have? Why am I telling you this? Oh, I know why. I remember why. Netflix. So I just watched yesterday and today. I blew through that new rom-com show with Kristen Bell and Seth Cohen in it. And in it, Kristen Bell and her sister, they're sisters who are podcasters, and they kept holding their microphones like this. You can't hear me when my microphone is this far away. For those of you who are listening and not watching me, you can watch these on YouTube. For those of you who are listening, I'm holding my microphone. When I'm holding it like down here, I'm holding it like 2 feet away from you can't see me because the microphone, but they would like hold it down below their mouths, and you can kind of hear me, but not really, because the way that these expensive, nice podcasting microphones are, they have to be very close to your mouth. That's why you pay for a microphone like this, so that it's not like picking up ambient noise. Okay, sorry, it's going to make a loud sound, because I'm going to put it back in the stand. I'm going to be so gentle so it doesn't. Oh, sorry. But yeah, every time they were recording a podcast, they would like hold it down, and I was like, what? Is no one in the room who has a podcast? No PA, no third AD, no one has a podcast and isn't going to be like, hold the microphone to your mouth, you big dumb. Like, what is that? I bugged me so much. That was like the hill I would die on, is like, I just took me so out of it. And I was just so like, roll your eye, actors. What are you doing, silly gooses? But otherwise, I really liked that series. Although I am like in my era where I cannot watch cringy stuff, uncomfortable stuff. So like if there were cringy parts of it, I would like either mute it the same way I would if I watch a scary show. Like when I watched Pedro Pascal's show on HBO, the one with the monsters and the mushroom monsters. What's that show called? It Ends With Us? It's Us? This Is Us? No, that's that show where everyone dies. Does everyone die on that show? I never watched that show. I don't know. With Mandy Moore. I don't know what it's called, but it's Pedro Pascal's show. I have to watch that show At first, I watch the show on normal, but when the scary stuff starts, I mute it. And then normally I'll close my eyes too. But then I'll have to go back and try to unmute it, but I'll close my eyes still so then I can hear what's happening, even though I've seen what's happening. I've tried to watch it without sound to at least like know what happens, and close my ears. But then it really takes me like 3 goes to like really get through it because I'm just such a scaredy cat and I don't like scary stuff. I really don't. So, yeah, we just saw that Saturday Night Live movie yesterday. And same thing. It was so stressful. I was so stressed out the whole time. And I kept in my head, it was a great movie. Don't get me wrong. I really enjoyed it. But it was very stressful. And the whole time I kept having to be like, that Saturday Night Live is a thing. The show's not going to get like canceled right now. You know that Saturday Night Live happens. So like whatever happens right now, like everything ends up okay. But I was so stressed out. So, I don't know. When we were done, I like looked at Melissa, my best friend, and we went and saw it together. And I looked at her. I'm like, that was so stressful. I'm so glad I did not take an edible before that. That would have just like really stressed me out. It was so stressful. Oh, but it was great. How'd we get here? I don't remember how we get here. Let's talk about running, shall we? Enough about this silly goose stuff. Yeah, week 4. I had a weird ass week. It really started on Monday when I flew home from San Diego from my grandparents' celebration of life on Monday. And it kind of just like put everything into a weird thing. So let's start by going through my plan, like what I intended to do. Oh, actually, let me introduce myself. If you have made it this far and you don't know who I am, I'm Kelly Roberts. Hopefully you're still listening if this is your first time. I am a running coach. I am a runner. I'm not the type of person who has been active her whole life or athletic. I found sport very, very later in life. I was a theater kid, really struggled with my relationship to my body image and being someone who's strong and feeling like I was an athlete. I started running in 2013. Became a coach a couple of years ago. Very quickly after I became a runner, I went viral for taking selfies with hot guys behind me while I ran a half marathon and started a blog with all that intention. And from there, like became a running influencer right away and have been doing this now. It's 2014 for like 11 years. So no, 2014 I started. So 10 years this year. I've been doing a running influencer, but I started running in 2013. So yeah, it's been crazy, a really wild and wacky road. So Badass Lady Gang is our running community, and we have running services. Something that we really strive to do is educate women on the hows behind everything, work on their mental game so that we put tools in your tool belt that will serve you for life, help you avoid overtraining, help you avoid terrible running plans that weren't created for you, help women understand what strength means and why it's so important to redefine our relationship with athleticism, strength, chasing goals, what we're capable of, all of this stuff. So that's really what we do. There's kind of a couple different ways that you can train with us. You can join one of our chapters, which is totally free. We have chapters all over the US and Canada. They host free weekly meetups. They are truly for all athletic levels. So even if it's your first day and you're a walker, you will be in the same place as everyone else. It's very different. What we do is very different because we know that running and running clubs can be very intimidating, and that's not what we set out to do. We're really trying to build community. So it's friendship first and then a fun workout second. So if you think you're going to get like a 5K or 10K, you probably won't. You probably will get something more like 1 to 2 miles in a meetup, and very fun, very silly, very goofy. So you can head to badassladygang.com and then go to community to find all the chapters. That's one way you can connect with us. Our online community is free, and it's a great place to meet people, find people near you, get tips, tricks, share experiences, connect with people. We're really trying to spread our net a little bit wider in our online community to help new moms and women going through divorce, really try to like help women connect and share experiences and share resources. So keep your eyes peeled for our newer spaces inside the online community where people can go and connect in a very non-judgmental and not anonymous way. I will do anything and everything to stay off Facebook. Actually, I'm in a fucking battle. Sorry for the F word with Facebook. My pages, my Kelly Robert's page and then my Badass Lady Gang page both got hacked. In the sneakiest way, they sent me what's called a test flight. So when you work with apps and they're in beta, so that your user testing apps before they go public, you use an Apple software, it's not a software, a platform called Test Flight to mount to your app, and they sent me a test flight invite from Meta, and it looked really real. But the first time I missed it because this was when my grandparents passed and I was like home, and I need to get out of the habit of checking my email and working right when I wake up because I'm not with it. And I was like jet lagged and up at like 4 a.m. and working, and I saw it and I clicked it the second time instead of checking it. And they had mimicked all the ads I was spending. So the exact dollar amount. So I missed, I got kicked out and I can't get a hold of anyone at Meta. And luckily 2 people in the Badass Lady Gang are trying to help me, but it's been a month and a half and I can't get my pages back. So I'm like, can you just fucking delete them? Just delete them. Get off Facebook. We all need to get off Facebook. There's no one you can talk to for help. We know that they influenced the last election. Oh my God. Do you remember that? I hate Facebook. The amount I hate Facebook it knows no bounds. Everyone needs to get off Facebook. And honestly, I've always hated that I've had to be on there, but I've had to be on there because that's where it drives a lot of business through ads to get people to take on new plans and stuff like that. And at this point, I'm like, I'd rather go bankrupt and close Badass Lady Gang than have to use Facebook ever again. So this may be the end, and I'm okay with that. I'm going to go figure it out. Sell my body or something. I hate it. I hate Facebook. That's a dumb joke. Forgive me. Facebook makes me mad. Yeah, but anyways, so Monday was a rest day. I knew it was going to be a rest day. And as you can kind of remember, I kind of immediately moved things around on the podcast last week. So I'm going to do what was initially outlined last week. And then we all know I immediately started moving things around. So Monday, rest day. Tuesday, I had intended to do a speed play day. So 10 by 400 meters at interval pace. What ended up happening was I ended up doing an hour of cycling and then 45 minutes of strength. I kind of knew based on my schedule because I just had like back to back meetings all day long, and I didn't want to leave my house for long or like kill myself on a run. I wanted to be alert and with it for all those meetings, and that felt very doable in the morning with the weather. So I did that. Wednesday, I intended to do strength work in 60 minutes at conversational pace. What I ended up doing was the 4 by 10 minutes at threshold pace workout, which was hard and intense and fun. Thursday, I had intended to do that 4 by 10 minutes at threshold pace. What I ended up doing was 60 minutes at conversational pace. Friday, I intended to do cycling and strength work, and I ended up just doing 45 minutes of strength work. I didn't want to do cycling. I had a very long day working very late Friday. It was not an excuse. I didn't need to be doing it, but I wanted to finish that project and I just wasn't in the mood to go outside. And it gets dark earlier, so whatever. Saturday, I had intended to do a long run of an hour and 50 minutes. I actually took a kickback, hour 30 minutes. Sunday, today, I intended to do cycling, but I actually did 60 minutes conversational pace. So just the whole week constantly shifted every single day. So first, one of the things I really want to talk about this week is tracking your symptoms and tracking how you feel. Something that we do if you do one of our training experiences or if you join the Badass Lady Gang training team and these are in your journals, is I'm really big on female physiology and understanding what is happening in your body in different life stages, right? So the 3 life stages that we focus on are premenopause, so your fertile years, your perimenopause years, and then your postmenopause years. What's interesting is we call it menopause, but menopause refers to a single day. So it doesn't matter though. But learning about those different life stages, recently in the last couple of years, people talk a lot about periodizing your training to really support your different hormone levels and life stages. And honestly, I think for the everyday athlete, I don't think that's realistic, really, because for most people, you're not going to be taking your down weeks based on, like, if you're in your premenopause fertile years, you're not really going to be taking your down weeks based on your high hormone phase. You're probably going to be taking your kickback down weeks when someone in your family gets sick, when work blows up, when you're traveling for work, when you're traveling for vacation, right? Like so many other things in your life tend to dictate when kickback weeks happen, which isn't ideal. Technically, we want those kickback weeks to be in times when like we can't adapt well, or your body's just asking for it. So we do our best, but for the everyday person who is like spread too thin and doing their very best to train for, it doesn't matter if it's a 5K, a half marathon, a marathon, whatever, you only have X amount of time to do the things, and life tends to determine when you're taking kickback or down weeks. So when we're talking about the endogenous menstrual cycle, meaning naturally occurring hormones, no birth control. Maybe you have an IUD, but the IUD, when we're talking about hormones, you sit closest to when you are having a natural cycle. So we're not talking oral contraceptive. We're not talking things like the ring or hormonal contraceptives. So we have like two different phases. Well, more than that, but simply put, there is the low hormone phase, and then there's the high hormone phase. Those are the two phrases I like. I'm not going to call them the follicular or the luteal, because I feel like it's so much harder to understand what follicular and luteal mean. Follicular is the low hormone phase. So if you were to look at a graph, and the hormones that we're talking about are follicular stimulating hormone, FSH. What am I missing? I don't know. I don't have it in front of me. LH, luteinizing hormone, estrogen, and progesterone. Those are kind of like the four that we're talking about in the grander scheme of things. Everything's relatively low. When we refer to a lot of the information and studies that have happened on athletes, they're mostly all have happened on like college-age white men, and we sit closest to men when we're in the early stages of your low hormone phase, follicular phase. So that's your time where you can go hard in workouts because your body can recover better. So interval pace stuff, repetition pace stuff, lift a little bit heavier, maybe add in that second speed play day, go for your harder workouts, race, like all of that stuff. That's kind of the stage that you like the common information and the common guidance that we have about running like applies to us. In the middle, we have ovulation. So we see this surge in a couple of hormones and then a big drop as we head into the high hormone phase or the luteal phase. And the luteal phase can be kind of broken into two different phases, right? There's the higher part and then the later part and the earlier part of your high hormone phase. So once you kind of head into the high hormone phase, your body does have a little bit of a harder time adapting to training, recovering. Rest tends to be perturbed. Your sweat rate changes. The salt content of your sweat is a little bit saltier. You have a harder time offloading heat, you have a harder time accessing glycogen in your muscles because your body's getting ready to have a child possibly. So a lot of stuff happens with us. So sometimes it doesn't mean that we need to hermit, doesn't mean we need to rest and not work out. It just means that sometimes shifting things a little bit, if you're really feeling it, can be helpful. But kind of coming back to ovulation, one of the things that's really helpful to track and figure out when this happens, if you are in these early stages of your life, you're in those the premenopausal years, your menstrual years, is some people feel like a superhero on ovulation. And that sometimes can be a way to hack your training if you want to race, if you want to do time trials and stuff like that. Like you do have a little bit of a competitive advantage. Whereas some people feel actually flat when they ovulate. And it's the 36 hours after they ovulate that they have that little superhuman window. So tracking can be helpful to kind of like give yourself a little bit of a competitive advantage. Now, again, it doesn't mean that you can't race and kick ass and take names or run hard or do all these things when you're in the high hormone phase if you are in those premenopause years. I know for a fact the last time I all out raced, tried to BQ in Chicago, I was in the late high hormone phase. And had I known then what I know now, I would have fueled very differently. I needed so many more carbs than I got. I would have fueled earlier and more often to get all those carbs. I think my hydration was on point, maybe a little bit more saltier fluid was necessary, or maybe just more fluid, because I definitely finished a little dehydrated, but not much. It was probably like, that was the best dialing in of the hydration I've ever done. But my fueling was off because when you're in the high hormone phase, you just can't access glycogen as well, right? Like you can't really carb load as well, things like that. So it does bum me out because I think if I would have fueled the way I should have, had I known this stuff, I really think things would have been a little bit different. So now everyone is also like different. I know I have PCOS, so figuring out my cycles oftentimes is really annoying. I'll sometimes go 2 or 3 months with a period, or weeks and weeks and weeks with a bleed. I may not be having a period, but I'm having a bleed, and it's really hard to know low hormone phase, high hormone phase. When I often will feel like I'm in the high hormone phase for like 3 weeks, and I really feel it. And so I recently got an IUD. I know this is probably a lot of information, but I'm just using myself as an example. My doctor wanted me to get back on an IUD because she was worried about the bleeding and hormone levels. So it is a little bit easier to track things right now. I'm finally leveling out because your girl had a period for like literally 2.5 months. And after getting that IUD, which happened the last time too. And that was a bummer. That was a real bummer. But what can you do? My doctor wanted me to get it. I knew that was going to happen. It's kind of like being patient and seeing myself through it, and much better now. But whoa, baby. Yeah, so that's difficult, but there's lots. You can obviously track in an app. I know that can be sensitive because of what's happening with the MAGA stuff, taking away women's rights, and the weirdness that might be coming with Project 2025, with really persecuting women who possibly have abortions or miscarriages, which is fucking terrifying. And if you're listen to me, no, like totally nonpartisan. If you're sitting there saying like, this shit is not real, that'll never happen, it is happening. It is happening. Women are dying because they can't get the healthcare they need. And it has never been more important than to put on curiosity goggles, regardless of what you believe, and just listen to trusted sources, trusted and true journalism, and to just wait and listen and say, I have my beliefs and I have my values, but I want to hear your side of the story too. Listen to women, listen. And we have, like, it's never been more important for women's health than it is right now to just take care of each other. Right. So, I know that apps, a lot of times, a lot of people are feeling very nervous about tracking with apps, and that's totally fine. You can absolutely track in journals, right? Like I know when you train with us, you get a PDF weekly journal that has a whole 2-page list of symptoms that you can look out for, and you don't need to do all of them, but if you can get an idea of things to look for, that's one way to do it. You can do a basal temperature chart, right? That's a completely different thermometer, but you'll take your temperature every single day, and then you'll track for that little spike when you ovulate. What else can you do? There's pee strips. So you can check for ovulation on pee strips. They look very much like COVID tests. They're looking for that LH surge, I believe. And then, there's a couple different ways, but like those are the big ones, but mostly like tracking your symptoms, because the same goes for perimenopause and postmenopause. Even though in perimenopause, when you're on this like wild roller coaster for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 years, you can still kind of look for patterns, gauge how you're feeling. And when you are in those high highs and low lows, you can really take care of yourselves, because one of the things that you need to do when you are perimenopausal and postmenopausal in your training is you want to make sure that your easy days are easy and your hard days are hard, and you're taking more than enough rest to make sure that you're recovering the way that you need to, and that you're not just overstressing your body, because you're not going to be able to adapt to that stress. The stressors change, right? Your protein intake changes. You need more protein. How you stress your muscles changes, right? HIIT, high intensity interval training, which is also the same for PCOS, making sure that you're getting enough hard workouts, hard sessions, because that helps clear blood glucose. When you're postmenopausal, and this, like when you're perimenopausal, you're really putting strategies in place for postmenopause, but making sure you're lifting and lifting heavy, doing your plyometrics, lots of HIIT and high intensity stuff when you're doing that kind of hard workouts. Doesn't mean that you can't run marathons. Doesn't mean that you can't do distance. It just means how you train is going to shift a little bit. And when you're in perimenopausal and postmenopause, you do want to be tracking symptoms, because the more information you have, the more you can kind of take care of yourself. Because this week is a good example, right? Even though I'm not peri or postmenopause, I kind of got the idea. I was in the high hormone phase on Tuesday, but on Tuesday night, I really slept like crap. And I was waking up a lot. I was waking up hot, which is often like a big one for me, or getting really thirsty. And so I was able to do the workout on Tuesday, and it felt relatively good, right? My workout was that 4 by 10 minutes at threshold piece, which was just a minute longer than the week prior, which was, did I do 4 by a mile? I feel like I did 4 by a mile at threshold pace. So a little bit further, but I shortened my recoveries, right? So one of the things that we talked about last week is how I develop my training is every week stressors change a little bit, incremental changes in my stress. This week would have been a pretty big introduction of stress because my long run got a little bit longer. The threshold piece stuff stayed relatively similar, but the only change was it was a minute longer, and then I took a minute off of the recovery. But I was introducing a interval pace for the first time, because before this I'd only been doing repetition pace for shorter periods of time, 200 meter repeats. And this week we're introducing interval pace. Interval pace is kind of like mile pace. I like to say mile pace because it's the easiest one for us to like reach for when we're talking about pieces, especially if you've never done speed play before. That effort is relatively easy to gauge because we start with a mile time trial when you train with me. And when we're talking about like that hard, spicy effort of interval pace, it's an easier one to gauge. And then with experience, you kind of find out what interval pace is. It is a little bit different than mile pace, but that's a good effort level to go off of. So 10 by 400 meters at interval pace is a challenging, hard, taxing, demanding workout. So when I realized on Tuesday when that sleep was off, and then Wednesday I woke up and felt awful. Again, like was tired, heavy, flat, heavy lead legs. Something I always try to do and tell everybody is like, don't predict the future. Don't predict how your run is going to go based on how you're feeling in the moment, right? Sometimes when you're feeling unmotivated or heavy, lead leggy, 10 minutes in, 15 minutes in, 20 minutes in, you can turn it around, and you actually, some of your like dreaded, some of the runs you dread the most or worry about the most sometimes often end up being like your favorite and best, and you feel the best, and you can really surprise yourself. There's always room to surprise yourself. I took off. I felt horrible, and I felt horrible the whole time. I was kind of okay for the first 5K, but after that, like the whole rest of that workout, like I just wanted to be anywhere else. My hip hurt. I'm having some piriformis stuff starting to show up again, which I am like putting that fire out every single day. I'm not running through pain. I'm taking care of myself. I'm really prehabbing. I know everything that I need to be doing, and I'm doing all of that. And since then, like I knew no second speed play day this week. I'm pretty sure I'm in the high hormone phase, making sure I'm doing everything I can to recover as well as possible so that all of the work that I am able to do, like I really, really can adapt it. The example that I used in one of the videos on social media this week is kind of like having a sink or a bathtub that you're filling up. You can use a measuring cup as well. I think a measuring cup probably makes more sense. You're trying to get a cup of liquid in this measuring cup, but there's a couple little holes in the bottom. So you fill it up, and even though there is liquid inside of this measuring cup, it's spilling out. So you're not getting as much as you put into it, right? Like that, you want to make sure that everything that you're doing, you adapt instead of just kind of sort of recovering, because you could work as hard as you possibly can, but if you're not recovering, you're not going to get the full benefit of all the work that you're doing. So recovery is really important, and that's one of the reasons why tracking symptoms and taking care of yourself when you're pre, peri, and postmenopausal is so important. So, and that's one of the reasons I'm not huge on cookie cutter training plans, and having someone like a coach, whether you do a training experience with me or join the team, having that resource of someone to help you and guide you and make sure that you are adapting, recovering, and working out in a way that is, or training in a way that most supports you in your life stage and where you're at. It's not something that you can do on an app, really. I mean, you kind of can, and people are designing algorithms, but like, it's not a person. So it is what it is, but I cannot like stress and recommend and double underline enough how important it is to like track your symptoms and kind of start to learn all this stuff. And if you want more, come to a training experience, join the team, all that. But yeah, so I cut my second speed play day. I knew I wouldn't be able to recover the way that I wanted to. And I also was like, my hip hurts. It's like a 1.5 out of 10, but this 1.5, if left, right? Think of it like a campfire that's not put out all the way. If I leave this campfire, even though it looks like it's put out, if I just walk away, there's a good chance it's going to start a wildfire. I don't want that to spread. I want to make sure that I put the fire out completely, or that I'm on top of it to make sure that nothing happens. So taking more rest, taking more recovery time, taking longer in my warm-ups to really make sure that I'm putting that fire out, not altering my gait too much, because that's one of the things that happens when we do have these small little flare-up stuff, right? Our gait is changed. Our gait, the way that we move, our form shifts, and then you end up getting an injury somewhere else because you're overcompensating for that little tiny fire. So I ended up on on Thursday. After that 60-minute conversational pace run, I ended up Friday I did that strength work and cycling. And then I was kind of on high alert for Saturday. The goal was to do an hour and 50 minutes, but I was like, let's just see how I do, make sure that my hip's okay, make sure that my form stays good. I felt fine through like 5K again, but then just like heavy legs, super tired. My headspace was fine, but I was trying to stay on top of my form. And I kind of knew before I started, I was like, I don't know if I'm going to end up doing an hour 50. I'm going to really let myself be flexible. If I end up doing a kickback week, that's totally fine. I'm also okay with today doing 60 minutes and then tomorrow doing my long run. Once I kind of hit 60 minutes, I was like, okay, I don't want the pressure of doing this long run tomorrow, because this week needs to be a down week for me. This is a kickback week. I'm just going to get to 90 minutes. That's going to be a good kickback for me. And then tomorrow I'll do my 60-minute run. So once like my form kind of started to go and I really started to shuffle around 85 minutes, I knew we're done, right? Because shuffling, once your form degrades, that's where injuries start to happen. That's where injuries, they're really prominent. And so I knew like we're done and it's totally fine. I did everything I needed to do today. And then tomorrow I'll try to run. And if for some reason I do feel off or like my hip hurts, immediately I'll stop. But like ran today, felt so much stronger today than yesterday. And you might think, well, then why didn't you do your long run? Because it's a kickback. The goal is not to do the long run. The long runs, I still ran long. 90 minutes is really long. But I'm going to do that harder, longer workout next week, right? I'm going to move that interval stuff to next week. I'm going to move my 1 hour, 50-minute run to next week. I can afford this down week, really an opportunity to give my body as much delicious, nutritious food, rest, adequate rest, foam rolling, headspace, making sure that I'm just like taking care of myself and letting myself adapt to all the work and all the coins into the coin jar that I put in this week, right? Does that make sense? Yeah. So something that I've been doing this week, and it was really prevalent during my 4x10 minutes, is finding ways for your strength to start to show up, looking for it, starting to define what, like success and failure are. And what, for me, one of the ways that I define success is feeling my strength and looking for it. I want to feel stronger. I want to feel, powerful and confident on the run. And during those 4x10, one of the ways that I also qualify it is how my headspace is. So one of the things that we're always trying to do at Badass Lady Gang when you're training with me and doing, you're on the team or you're doing a training experience, is I'm working on your mental game, because it takes a lot of time to get to a place where your brain space is kind of just empty, right? You're able to surrender. You're able to be ultra present and mindful, and you can notice thoughts, and you're hearing thoughts, but the parrots that are on your shoulder that are screaming in certain points, even though they're screaming, they don't sound very loud, or they're not overwhelming, right? You don't need to pay attention to them. You sometimes in rough patches, right? Things can get loud, but you feel in control and you feel calm and you feel confident, right? Even though things feel a little chaotic. That's what happens when you're always working on your mental game, right? Whether it's before and when those little tiny inaccurate thoughts of, I don't know if I can do this. Not that, but I don't think I can do this. You can't run that. When those kind of thoughts start to sneak in, you can be like, oh, that's interesting. I'm starting to doubt myself in a way and define what I can and can't do. Interesting. I don't know what I can do. I do think this is going to be challenging. I don't think this is going to be the easiest thing in the world. That's not why I'm doing this. But I instead of focusing on specific outcomes of if I don't hit X pieces, I'm a failure, right? Success is maybe like really looking out today for ways that my strength is showing up. Maybe if the parrots are a little bit quieter, right? I can really pull for X, Y, and Z tools. I'm going to work on my mantra today, work with my mantra today. I'm going to work on chunking this. I'm not going to look at my watch for this, things like that. That's how that stuff happens. So it's like a muscle that you really need to work and work and work in order to get stronger. So defining what success and failure are and looking out for ways that, like you're able to have and find and experience success on the run. And they don't need to be outcome driven. I would say most of them need to be more process, right? If success is I need to execute 9 minutes pace for every single 10-minute rep, you don't give yourself a lot of wiggle room there. Instead, I want to try to execute as close to 9 minutes. And when I stray, or should I stray, not when, if I deviate or maybe fall off pace, I want to become really mindful today of why, right? Maybe it's a mental thing. Maybe it's a fueling thing. Maybe it's, I get a little doubtful or I'm just straight tired. What can I do in that moment to get back on pace and feel more energized? Whether it's a form check, pumping my arms a little bit harder, smiling, or things like there's so many things that we can do in that moment, right? So now we took what could just be black and white success, failure, and moved it into more of a fun, actionable, learning, growing kind of a growth mindset place, right? For me, the goal of this Project 159 is success is breaking 2.5 hours and failure is not breaking 2.5 hours. If it was that black and white, I wouldn't do this because I would be setting myself up for a broken heart. I would be setting myself up for possible failure because me breaking 1 hour and 59, that's not something that's inside of my control. The things that are inside of my control are my attitude, my effort level, focusing on my form, focusing on working on my gait, focusing on getting stronger and doing my strength work and putting as many coins in the coin jar as possible every single week, staying flexible, making sure that my recovery stays strong, making sure I'm crossing all my T's and dotting my I's to try to prevent injuries. Preventing injuries is not inside of my control, but doing what I can to prevent injuries is inside of my control, right? Doing my dynamic warm-ups, foam rolling, working on my form, doing my drills, making sure that I'm listening to my body so that if I'm trying to just do a long run for the sake of doing a long run because I've convinced myself if I don't run this far, I won't be ready, right? And putting myself in a position where my gait is compromised and I'm not running strong anymore, I'm putting myself in a position where I might get hurt. Right? Like being smart, making smart choices, all of that is inside of my control. Shit happens. We all know based on 2020 that anything can happen, right? Weather's outside of your control and unpredictable, illness, work, like there's so much shit that's outside of your control. So if you just bring it back to what can I control and what can I do and in defining success and failure in those terms, and then most importantly, just focusing on personal best effort, that is what makes things fun. That's what makes things interesting. And that's what makes training and chasing big, audacious goals worthwhile. Because you may hear this if this is all new for you and think she's not committed to breaking 2, but that's not the truth. I could not be further in this if I tried. I could not be trying harder if I wanted. I'm giving everything every single day. But I also have a bit of mastery under my belt and I know what I'm doing and I know all the ingredients of this dish, right? I know the ingredients, but I'm straying from the recipe because every single time you train is its own thing. If I tried to do the same thing every single time, I wouldn't be giving myself the opportunity to discover new things or to roll with the punches, right? I always use this example in our coaching calls. You practice so that you step up to the plate and you hit the pitch. You don't know what pitch is coming your way. We were talking about this on a coaching call this week. I feel like it was our marathon coaching call. I know like this much about baseball, like nothing. I think I've gone to like 6 baseball games in my life. I do know though that they don't always hit the ball. They rarely hit the ball, right? This is one of the reasons why baseball is so boring. Sorry if you love baseball, but it has to be the most boring sport in the whole world. They are never hitting that fucking ball. And even when they do, like, they don't go very far. It's so rare that they hit a home run. And so, which is why it's such a big deal when it happens. But even though, like, could you imagine if every time like those baseball players went into a game, they were like, success is hitting the ball, failure is not hitting the ball. They would not last. They would not be in the sport anymore because they would just be so broken down and they would constantly feel like the biggest failure. But they're not, right? There is so much variability in there, and like they can only like work on their swing so that they can have, you know, as high of a probability of, you know, striking the ball regardless of whatever pitch gets thrown their way. I wish I knew more about baseball so I could be a little bit more knowledgeable, but I do feel like even though most of us probably know nothing about baseball, like you kind of get the idea, right? Cool. All right. I'm so far off my outline. I don't even know where I am in my outline. Yeah, so this week ended up being a kickback week. It ended up being a kickback week because I'm in the high hormone phase, not necessarily because my body was asking for it, but because I know that I'm having a harder time adapting to stress. So making sure that I'm doing just what's manageable was the goal. We talked a little bit about accurate self-talk. No, we didn't. I mentioned it. Accurate self-talk. If it's true, you can't fight it, right? I don't want to go for a run that even though people will say like, oh, that's negative self-talk. It's true though, right? If it's true, we can't fight it. This was something Dr. Bob taught me. So coming to a place where, right, when you're not motivated or you're struggling to get out the door, not resisting so much when you're feeling that way, and instead just saying like, oh, I'm really struggling to get out the door today. I really don't feel like I want to run, but I really care about Project 159. I really care about my goal. And I know that today matters, even though I'm feeling XYZ. So I'm going to get dressed and I'm going to give myself permission to be a little bit more gentle with myself today. Maybe I'm going to make a shift in how far I'm going or how long I'm going or the workout, whatever, right? Like you're always allowed to be flexible, but like the biggest thing is to try and see what happens, right? That's the goal. So accurate self-talk. I can't do this. That's not accurate. You can't predict the future. You have no idea what you can and can't do. That's why we're here. Now, if I were to sit here and say like, you know, I really want to break 2, but I'm actually going to go for 130. I can't do that right now, right? I can look on paper and say, this is the training I'm doing. And based on all of the work that I've put in and what my training has looked like, I don't think I have the physiological adaptations or capability to do that right now. In 2 years or a year or 5 years, maybe, but like, that's not really something I want either. Right? So what's inside of the realm of possibility based on the work that you're doing? Now, there are always things that you can just like blow things out of the park. What's interesting is like today when I was running with my best friend, Melissa, she's training for New York. So she had 2-hour 40, 2-hour 50-minute run. I can't remember. So I ran an hour with her, the first hour. And she asked me on the run, she was like, so how are you thinking? Do you think you're going to be able to break 2? And I like looked at her and was like, oh, I mean, it's so crazy because like if you would have asked me last week, I would have been like, I think I can do this. It's starting to feel a little bit more possible. And then if you would have asked me this week it feels a little less possible because I feel so crappy and I'm running a little bit slower this week. So allowing yourself, this is one of the reasons why having a coach is helpful because they can kind of see through when you're having a week where you're just not performing where you want to perform or feeling how you want to feel. They can look at the bigger picture. I will definitely have a better idea in the next 3 weeks. I definitely think we're literally 4 weeks into this. We have 8 weeks of training left. I have no idea the leaps and bounds I'm going to make in the next 8 weeks. Now, I definitely think I'm trending in the right direction. And I do think if I keep moving at the rate that I'm moving right now, I do think it's possible. It feels a little less impossible than it did 4 weeks ago. But this week was hard. This week was mentally hard. So in reality, like my answer to her today was like, I really don't know. I just don't know. Right. I do believe in myself and I believe I can do it, but it definitely feels scary and daunting. But I'm not worrying about it. We're too far away. Right now, the next goal is to get through these next 4 weeks, this next phase of training. I'm excited to race in a couple of weeks. Me, Jeannie, and Melissa are doing, I think it's a 10K. We're doing a 10K in Sleepy Hollow with Ichabod Crane. my other best friend, Megan, Scott's wife, I don't even know how she got so obsessed with Ichabod Crane. Am I saying his name right? Ichabod Crane, Sleepy Hollow, the Headless Horseman. When I was at Disneyland before the Halloween spooky time Oogie Boogie Bash parade, I knew they had the Headless Horseman. They do that at Disney World too, but they also have Ichabod Crane in the front with like 2 other guys, and he was like shaking his knees because he was scared, and he had like the little like 18, 17, whatever hundreds wig on, and I was just dying, and I was like, where's Megan? So yeah, me and Ichabod are gonna race a 10K. We're gonna run from the Headless Horseman. So I am kind of curious to see what that looks like, right? Like, will I be able to break 55? Will I be able to hit 53? I don't know. We'll see. I'm nervous, but I'm visualizing and doing everything I can to kind of like be where I am. So yeah, right now, like the only goal right now is to continue to find ease on the run, because when things are clicking and even if I'm off pace, I feel like I'm focusing on my personal best and I'm finding that headspace where I'm just finding ease and looking for my strength to start to show up. That's where I am. This is a really long episode. We're already like over 45 minutes. All right. There was a couple questions. I didn't answer questions last week, so I tried to go back through my socials last week and this week and pull 3. So here's the first one. Do you use, and oh my God, I wrote this down like a cuckoo bird. Do you use an app, APPT? Oh wait, app, and then 2. Do you use an app to keep you on that pace throughout your mile repeats? Oh, no, I don't. So I know actually, I don't know. This was something we talked about. I didn't do a mile time trial at the top of this. I'm kind of going I'm going off of feel, because I know what repetition pace, interval pace, threshold pace, marathon pace, I know what those feel like after having done this for 2016 is when I started. So 16 to 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, 24, over 8 years. Over 8 years of training, I've developed a very, very intimate relationship with these effort levels. So I'm pretty good at pacing, and I feel very confident pacing myself at efforts. So I feel really confident holding steady and being consistent. That's something that I'm always striving for with my athletes. Can you shoot for consistency with those efforts? I feel very confident in how consistent I can be in those efforts. So though in the back of my mind, I'm looking at the VDOT calculator of what I think my paces are, I know how to pace them. So I know those efforts. So I'm definitely not using an app to keep me on pace. I actually have tried to use the Garmin or Polar or stuff where you're using it beeps at you when you go too fast or too slow. And it drove me absolutely bananas. I don't know how you guys do it. I know so many of my athletes love it. I can't. That drives me so crazy. I never want anything to vibrate on my wrist unless it's telling me time to rest. So no, I don't use something to keep me on pace besides my experience. Learning how to pace yourself takes time. The only way is through trial and error. If you can remember back to, seasons 1 and 2 of BQ Robust training, season 1 specifically, I didn't know any of these paces. Everything felt impossible. I had so many predefined limits. Season 2, I didn't know these paces as well in my body. I didn't know the efforts. but I felt more confident running them. Whereas once you like fast forwarded to like more like 2019 in my last attempt, I felt so confident in those efforts and paces. So now, years, even more time passed, I feel very, very confident about running those efforts. Practice makes perfect. How long do your runs take you on average? Oh, I mean, I train people by time. So most of my stuff, as you're hearing on my schedule, is time. I would say most stuff nowadays is taking me 70 minutes or more. Even if I give myself a 60-minute run, there's a very good chance it's taking me 65 or 70 minutes because I'm like stopping for water or taking a walking break at some point, or just like misinterpreting how far I'm going to go because I think I'm a 9 or 10 minute miler and I'm not. And even though I haven't done that since 2019, I just like for some reason refuse to accept that I'm not that. So I always end up running a little bit further, which is okay. But yeah, I mean, listen, I'm working out a lot, right? Most days I'm doing at least 70 minutes of work, if not closer to 2 hours, 90 minutes to 2 hours, you know, with those strength training days. So yeah, I work out a lot. Do you use that stool similar to how you would use a step? If you saw the time lapse of my last strength session, I stepped up onto a step for some hip dip type stuff. Coach Amanda, who is head of strength and yoga at Badass Lady Gang, in one of her videos, she's been having everybody use steps. So yeah, I have a little step stool for little workouts. I don't think a step stool, a small step stool, is similar to like what you would find at a gym or whatever. So I would never jump on that. But like using it to elevate the ground, like get off the ground and then be able to have range of motion to like, I'm dipping my hips right now. Dip your hips or like lay on it a little bit to do stuff, or to like get into a single leg squat, things like that. It is helpful to have a little stool, but like I just follow what Coach Amanda says. So yeah, those are the 3 questions I pulled. So yeah, long episode. Sorry about that. Yeah, if you have any questions, just ask them in the comments of the TikTok or the Instagram or YouTube. You can also email me and I am more than happy to answer them. Oh, I feel like someone actually emailed me a question, but I don't want to go look for it right now. If they did, I'll include it next week. So yeah, that's all. Come train with me. We have our turkey trot coming up, training experience. It starts in 1 week. If you're listening to this in real time, it starts October 7th, but we keep it open for an extra week. If you are panicked about an upcoming marathon and need some coaching, sign up for a month of coaching. I'll do one-on-one with you. We have our, not November, that's closed. We have our Run Disney challenges. So if you're doing a January half marathon or a marathon and you're looking for, or you're doing some of the Run Disney challenges, whether at Disneyland or Disney World, we have a training experience that starts very soon as well in October. That training experience is open. We have a February November training experience coming, but that's not open yet. So keep your eyes peeled. But if you join the team, you get the 6 weekly coaching calls. You get access to all of our training experiences all year long. Lots of great, good, fun stuff. But check that out. Link in my bio or down below. Come train with us. It's a lot of fun to do a training experience or join the team. I can't recommend it enough. We do things very differently. It's all about actually giving you support so that you don't overtrain or run yourself into the ground. So yeah, that's all. Week 4, check. I feel like I've been doing this for 8 months. It's only been 1 month. I didn't talk about week 5. Quickly. Okay. Monday, tomorrow, cycling and strength. Tuesday, 10 by 400 meters at interval pace. I'm going to try to get my ass to a track. Wednesday, strength work and a 60-minute run. Although maybe I might move that strength work on Wednesday. Thursday, if I feel okay, 3 by 15 minutes at threshold pace. If I don't feel great, 60-minute run. Friday, rest day. Saturday, an hour 50. Sunday, possibly strength work, and then maybe cycling. So yeah, that's the layout of this week. Hopefully I don't move things around too much. All right, everybody, kick ass, take names. Thanks for listening. I'll see you later.